Today's video will take us to Canada's northernmost and coldest region, Nunavut. Tundra territory where 28,000 Inuit live in a remote and rocky environment. Many tourists find the local lifestyle fascinating and the weather conditions are amazing. It is famous for its cold temperatures. This place is also a good spot to see the northern lights. People who wish to see polar bears up close and in their natural habitat often travel to Nunavut. Polar bears can roam freely in the areas they choose, so they are considered to be residents of this area. However, Nunavut hunters hunt them down in case they attack humans. There have been numerous cases of polar bear attacks in this territory since then. Polar bears are among the most powerful, aggressive, and dominant bear species. It's not surprising that they bring terror to Nunavut's residents and tourists. In this video, we will tell the horrifying story of a woman who was studying beluga whales at Pond Inlet and Inuit Hamlet in Nunavut when she was attacked by a polar bear. Aldina Moore, a wildlife researcher, was sent to Nunavut along with 12 other researchers in order to study the beluga whales, the sea canaries of our ocean. Aldina was familiar with beluga whales from her childhood and has always been interested in their lives. She would take every opportunity to view them up close, and she did. Aldina was captivated by the beauty of the surrounding area as Hanta and Yotimo showed them beautiful views on their motorboat ride. Aldina took many photographs of animals and other sights while sailing to their campsite. When they arrived at their campsite close to the coast, Aldina and Hanta were helped to set up the camp by Yotimo, Hanta, and Hanta. Each researcher had their own sleeping bag, a huge research tent, a table to eat at, and many boxes containing essentials for their expedition to study beluga whales were provided. After all the hard work of setting up camp, Aldina, the crew decided to take a break before they set up the net they will use to catch a beluga. Once they have finally seen one, they will take photos of the body and take blood samples to examine its behavior. They may also record its sounds. After about half an hour, they release the whale without any harm. Aldina visited Hanta and Yotimo to inquire about the conditions. It caused any dangers while they were resting. Aldina was told by Hanta that tourists were also present at the camp, and they returned home in record time. After hearing that there was no Aldina, she was certain that the area was safe. However, Yotimo immediately warned her about polar bears. Polar bears are indigenous to these areas, Yotimo said as he began speaking. Our tourists might be safe and get home, but they also get home scared and terrorized because they saw a polar bear. Aldina, confused but full of curiosity, began to ask Yotimo questions. Do you know what happened to those tourists? Why are they so afraid of polar bears? What did the polar bears do? She asked. Yotimo sighed and pointed out a place at a distance. He told Aldina to take a look, and he said it was the location where polar bears often go, and also where tourists most often see them. Aldina was surprised by how close it was to their camp. Hyla assured Aldina that the spot is used by the polar bears to rest or eat the food they have gathered while hunting in other parts. Aldina and other researchers must not do anything that could threaten or provoke them. Aldina agreed that everyone would be okay. If she stayed true to Hanta and Yotimo's advice, it would be fine. After her conversation with the two Inuits, she advised the other researchers to set up the net that they used to capture one beluga whale. Evan, another researcher, decided to put the net in the water. They set up the trap with 4 male researchers before dropping it in the water. Aldina informed the other researchers, after the net was dropped, that they should continue to monitor it for 24 hours per day. To do this, they should rotate shifts every 3 to 4 hours. As they began to look for signs of a beluga, the other researchers also agreed. Aldina was assigned to the afternoon shift, which was agreed upon by most researchers. She took a short nap until one researcher woke her. When it was her turn, she watched the net. She sat down in a chair and started her shift with Nicholas and Rita, 2 other researchers. As they watched, the 3 of them talked casually about polar bears rather than beluga whales. Aldina was slightly disconcerted by the idea of being able to see a large predator up close, while the others were curious about the size of a polar bear. She explained to the others that polar bears can be aggressive and won't hesitate to kill. After the brief talk, Aldina decided to leave and go to a nearby location to see 2 seals heading towards the coast. She quickly grabbed her camera to take pictures of the seals. It was rare to see seals close up, and Aldina wouldn't miss a chance to capture them. Aldina suddenly felt something strange about her surroundings. She felt as if something was following her throughout the day. She tried to look around, wandering around the area to see if anything was following her. Aldina saw what she was trying to avoid: a polar bear. She couldn't tell if the bear was close or far away. She could only guess that the bear was only meters from her. Aldina, still terrified but fascinated, tried to get a photograph of the bear. When the bear suddenly began to walk towards Aldina, Aldina was terrified and ran for the camp, but it was too late. The moment Aldina started to run, the bear quickly ran and captured her in its enormous paws. She didn't know that polar bears can capture prey so fast. Aldina started to scream when the polar bear immediately put her to the ground and scratched her back, causing her extreme pain. She tried to wiggle her body away from the enormous animal, but it caused her to lie on her back, giving the polar bear more access to her body and causing her further injuries. Aldina shouted again for help from the other researchers, shuddered and decided to rush toward. While the researchers ran to her aid, the polar bear kept clawing Dina's back. She was protecting her nape against being scratched as she did this, despite the pain she was feeling. After clawing at her for some time, the polar bear finally stopped and jumped onto her body. Then it stomped on her numerous times. Evan, one of the researchers at the scene, brought out his rifle and fired a shot at the polar bear. It missed due to the rapid movements of the polar bear, but the rifle's loud sound shocked the animal and caused it to startle. Evan saw this and fired another shot alongside the polar bear. It ran away instantly. Aldina was left conscious and hurt. They immediately called a plane to pick them up and take Aldina to Ecola, the only city in Nunavut that was a medical center. Aldina was treated for severe injuries by the polar bear attack and received over 400 stitches. The events of the last few days forced Aldina's research team to cancel their exposition. After the incident, Nunavut hunters gathered at the spot to hunt for Aldina's polar bear. It won't cause any further damage to tourists. Aldina survived and is now on her way to recovery.